Okay, well, thank you very much. We are working on revisiting the state of Michigan's construction code. And here's our website. We believe that there's room to make some changes in it. And you're seeing me rip through, Carol. This is probably the first time you've been here, but this is the single state construction code, and as usual, it's very complicated and legal and all that. To bring it down to what we're trying to do is that we see that in each of the boards that we believe that we probably would like to see more representation of the user who is not a enforcement or conformity assessment agent. So we can see that fairly systematically here. In the mechanical board, you'll see that they don't have a person, what we'll call the final fiduciary, distinct from the person charged with public safety. Obviously, you can see this in your board. The final fiduciary is not here. I'll call the final fiduciary the user owner.
Sure.
And so here we're looking at the boiler board. These are all governor appointees. And again, very often, where's the general interest? We have the general public. It's not clear where this person's sentiment lies. It may be as a final fiduciary. We don't know. Bureau of Fire Services, where was I think this might be our board here. Is that our board here? Maybe it's not our board. I'll go to the other one. Electrical Administrative Board. It's fairly clear here. Here is the existing board. And this is what I'll let Paul talk about because everyone hears me talk this story. I like Paul to give his point of view. So here,
now,
go ahead.
At one point, Dave Flint was on the elevator board. Is he still
He
on
was.
the elevator board?
He's been replaced. Yeah, I'll get to that.
Okay.
His daughter will be on the board, but she may not be the chairman of the board. So you'll see him identified here. So here's us again. Here's us saying that here are all these representatives. Ideally we see these large parts of the construction that are large purchasers of facilities or operators of facilities. Jim has been quick to mention that education has to compete with the prison industry for funding. I'm not sure if they're building as much as we do, but certainly they're paying as much. So this is the electrical board and the elevator board. I believe that we've got that somewhere on here. Did I? Looks like I might have lost it.
What you've got there is signed by Dave Flint. So.
Yeah, and then the plumbing board. Gee, it seems to me I lost some of these. In any case, our point is now to go back here is to install someone, and that's why your name came up as somebody who might be have the time. And I can't hide the fact that it's about 8 hours a month to follow what's going on and to drive up there. And so with that, what I'll do is I'd like Paul to come in with this point of view on an experience we had up at BCC. He understands general philosophy. I think he's close to the action for barrier-free, but also he was one of the people who came up with the idea that we really should be. Paul came to me and said, Mike, why does everything over $100 have to be inspected? And so from that, we've been working almost 1.5 years now. We're trying to get this. So I don't know if you know, in the state of Michigan, you have to have anything above that kind of level has to have an inspector. So we're asking to at least raise it. And so what I'll do, Paul, is if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about what happened up at talking with Irwin a couple weeks ago. And then I think I'd like Jim to come in and support our case that our industry needs to devote people, experts, considerably in a permanent way, because unless we can do that, trying to change the state law is not practical. So that's what Jim will come and make the point on. So Paul, do you have a few minutes just to tell us what it was like?
I can summarize it. Well, it's actually a very good meeting. I I found that both Mr. Polk and his associate were very attentive and actually had a genuine interest in sitting and talking with us, which was kind of surprising since it was a Friday afternoon. You know, Mr. Polk started off by saying that, you know, he's been telling his staff that they needed to take a look at this $100 limit because he said if you don't take a look at it and start examining what this really should be, you know, somebody else is going to walk into my office and they're going to ask me to have this changed. So we need to be proactive. Mr. Polk didn't really support a change in dollars, but he did support or was open to the idea that that perhaps what we could do is look at type of work, and which would align a little bit with the plumbing codes, where the plumbing codes, certain types of work require permits, certain types of work don't. I'm not sure that's in the best interest of the university because, you know, maintenance work that we perform doesn't require inspections. But you know, my thought on this is that you know, the $100 was put into place about 40 years ago, perhaps even, you know, 50 years ago, when $100 would get you an electrician for a day plus all the materials that they might need to do a job. So it's pretty much antiquated, and you know, it costs us as a university, even though we're playing with blue money, when I hire the inspectors from the university to inspect a project, it's a minimum of 1% of the job cost, or $75. So somebody that needs to have a $200 electrical job performed by my group is required to not only pay us the $200 for the work, but also a $75 inspection fee. So we're adding a lot of cost and not necessarily value. So we've just got an interest in the university's perspective of doing things safely, but doing things reasonably as well.
I'm curious, he sounded as if a little bit of speaking of both sides, that there was a recognition that the $100 threshold was antiquated, and he had asked his staff to consider it, you know, addressing themselves to some type of revisions, but yet he was also seemed to be resisting to change the threshold, and instead directed to probably to consider changes based upon the type of work instead.
Correct.
Am I hearing that accurate? Did he express why? Well, you know, why that seemingly makes it even more complex, because then you're going to spend so much more time trying to define various types of work.
Right.
But
well, this was my first visit up to any of these regulatory people, so I tried to listen a lot more than talk.
Yep. Okay.
So I didn't want to, being new to legislating change, I wanted to just really understand more about how it works.
Understand. Yep.
But I agree with you.
Yeah.
You know, there's certain things. You know, there's certain things that we perform, and I'll give you a real simple example. If somebody wants to add a phone in an office because they want to put 2 people in the office,
okay.
You know, UMTEL comes in and well, we have to put an electrician over there to install the box and the raceway that goes back to the cable tray.
Right.
Now, that work is basically a metal box and a conduit that goes back into where UMTEL has like open cables out in the corridor. that needs to be inspected. And it's being done by a licensed electrician, and it's maybe a couple hours worth of work. That would be an example of the type of work that I don't believe needs to be inspected going forward. But it also might be one of those ones where we can argue where if there are no load-carrying conductors, so there's wires in there, but they're telephone wires as opposed to wires. That would be a type of work that I would think everybody would agree could be exempted.
That sounds like the $200 worth of work and the $75 kind of inspection on top of it.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. I believe that Irwin had said he doesn't like indexing. We
Right.
suggested that you pick a number and index from it, so he didn't like that. So I think we got our clinic on that. I'll mention, I'm writing just a few notes here as you guys are speaking, that I know that Indiana, and actually, if you go into this site, you'll see me. I haven't had a chance to do it myself. Jim, if you got any extra resources, this can't be. This is just so much fun to go to all these different states here. But over time, I've tried to pull together equivalent. So when we're looking at changing our own, I was looking for precedents elsewhere, and I have a number of states already. I guess I don't have them, but I have a number of states already here. I just don't have the time to go over them, especially since I know that it's probably more important to start getting people with eyes and ears, that even if they aren't on the committee, and that's an area there I thought we could launch into now. Jim, we have these senior facilities officers meeting here in the first week of October, and we would like to be able to give them access to this clip, but also to make a statement that if you're interested in, if they're interested in controlling their costs, this is a very effective way to do it. But they're going to have to devote some of their best people, the most experienced people, to deal with issues that require heavy lifting and can only be done by a person in the sweet spot of their career, mid to the late part of their career. And that's difficult because very often they're managers so that's the case we'd like to make at the MIAPA senior facilities officers.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, this is changing state law is in this arena would be quite complex, and just as much as you've seen that the way that these boards are already dominated, by conformity agents and employee groups and the like. If you just went into you're going to go into a legislative and battle those same groups, and I'd say you have at least you've got to sort of exhaust your administrative remedies and attempt to get some placement on some of these boards and do some of this work within, hopefully, and raise these issues within each and every single one of these different boiler rules and design boards and board mechanical rules, etc.
Yes, I'll try to stay there. You said it. Let's use all these administrative remedies first, but I like to modify.
Yeah,
I think that's what you said first. First, but I'm going to say before we attempt, and I guess I would suggest that we actually try to do both and learn along the way. And what do we say? Soften the beachhead, so to say. So Mike would ask, can we do both? Can we work at both ends? Can we work the problem? Can we work?
Yes, you can. And right, and then, as I've said before, this is also important where MIAPA, as the organization, needs to come along. That this is not an effort that the University of Michigan is interested in taking on alone. And so, when you approach, or if there was to be an approach to the President's Council, you'd want it to be a multiple number of institutions recognizing the cost impact of these rules, and collectively bringing to the attention of the President's Council, for example, that this deserves and needs to be somewhat of a measure of a legislative priority or an advocacy, and so that it's a collective effort. It is, in fact, the President's Council, and not just simply the University of Michigan or Michigan State or someone else individually.
Yeah, and that's where we're going to struggle, because every experienced person that I work with at Michigan State and Western, I think they've all been very cordial and have said, yes, this is something we need to do. But then when it comes to say, look, there's a meeting on Friday, and we need your person to prepare himself to look at the issues and get to that meeting, and speak at that meeting possibly, and then come back and report about what the effect is. That's taking 8 hours. It could even be 12 hours a month during the season, so to say. And now there are other workarounds. You simply pay someone. Understand that that's what the incumbents are doing. I refer to the incumbents as the people who actually can afford to participate. These are the people who can afford. These are the people who can afford to participate because they make money on us. They build the cost of their getting there, and that travels into our cost structure. But we who are paying it, so we know this drill.
Yeah, but can those users, and yes, you'd like them to be and commit some time to the board, but in absence of that, or another alternative, can or a number of them, a sufficient number of them, also develop the kinds of examples that Paul just outlined, and to be able to take to their run it up through their respective food chains at their institutions, to tell their business managers and plant operations directors and the like at all these various schools. Here's 5 examples of how these onerous state construction code regulations are costing Ferris State University, are costing Lake Superior State University, are costing the University of Michigan and Michigan State University. Each institution with its own individual series of examples, and elevate that through their plant operations and ultimately their financial executive officers, and then to the presidents, so that it gets to the President's Council as, once again, as I say, this multi-university recognition that these the failure to have user advocates on these boards are resulting in significant costs to each of our institutions.
Yeah, to make it real to them. Yeah, we have this general, this is what's specific to U of M. It's avoided cost. It's what we'll call avoided cost opportunities. Almost all the opportunities that U of M has released through standards development we're using. But the others are not. But the others are not. But that's what ideally should happen. But that's just a lot of work. I don't doubt that's ideal, but can MyAPA? So I think, to paraphrase, if I understand where you're driving at, is that if we're going to get 8 to 12 hours per month out of some of the best and most experienced people in every organization to start populating these boards here, that they have to make their own case. I think, Carol, you had mentioned to me that you knew somebody here on the board right here, right?
Harris.
So,
Yep.
there might be something, history might, yeah, there might be something there to help you build your case. It's always very delicate to deal with barrier-free because we're all compassionate people. But we also have to be practical and wise in the way we rationalize our resources. Anything? It sounds like you have something to say, Carol.
Well, I was just going to say, I think one of the things I want to be here today is transparent. So having listened to the strategy that you're hoping to put forward, I just want to be very clear. I'm retiring at the end of next year. So
you'll have time to serve on a board now.
So obviously, I mean, I've presented before the Barrier-Free Design. I mean, I've been present while AEC's presented before the Barrier-Free Design Board for waivers. I co-presented with the university before the elevator board for some other issues, not just waivers, but actually some issues regarding some of their, standards. And, I would love to be able to participate in this way, but I just want to be very clear and transparent that I'm, maybe January of 2016, but it probably as early as December of 2015, I'll be leaving the university and retiring. So I just want to be very transparent about that.
Okay. Do you have, yeah, I guess in the standards world, that's a very short period of time. I like to say that you really, 6 years minimum, if you're going to move $100 billion, you need about 6 years to do that. That's what I do. I've got about 12, hopefully I got another 12 years ahead of me, so that's 2 big things I can do. But as early as December 2015, then okay, we'll get that in there.
So, and because I noticed that it's a 3-year appointment, and I don't know when nominations occur and when the next piece would be, and I see that Mike's put down, attending on a regular basis would be a good way of kind of, having a presence and an interest in being on the board, which is not a problem. But I really need to be clear about, that's not going to be extended maybe except by a couple months into 2016, and then I will no longer be an employee of the university. So I just want everyone to know that as you're thinking about this strategy.
Well, what the pattern is that now you then go, this is called the revolving door. You would go to, now you've worked for the nonprofit sector. What you do now is you use you work for the for-profit sector to sell to our sector. And so that's what, that's what some of these people are. I'm not going to say everybody is here.
Right.
This is a different board. But then when you go to, if you go to the electrical board, you'll see some of that dynamic there. I think what we're suggesting here is that, and Jim has brought this up, that take advantage of the fact that anybody can sit in those meetings at any time. This group is a classy group. This guy runs a classy operation. Nobody's ever restricted. They understand their role to be as transparent, open, balanced as possible. But the balance is not written into the state law. We know that. And then we're complicit in permitting exceptions, variances, or really we can control what the degree to which a national standard is developed, whether adopted by whole cloth or partially. So we have some influence, and it takes a while, I want to say 3 to 6 years, for somebody to become acclimated to this. I've been on the NEC for 17 years now, and I'm at the point where people will say, well, if Mike says it's okay, then it's okay. And I can get large chunks of the electrical industry to go along with me just because it's an ad hominem recognition that I have some wisdom and experience and a track record of effectiveness in this. Those are the kind of people I call thought leaders. I call also known as code writers and vote getters. The highest form of thought leader in my estimation, at least in the world I travel, is the code writer and the vote getter. Because he's the guy that knows how to work in the nouns and verbs. He can do strike and bold. He can slam it together with data-informed data. He can get it in front of the committee. He can charm the people who don't like him into voting for him, and then he can bring it back to his institution, drive it into the culture and into the balance sheet.
Gotcha. And I just also want to let everyone on the call know that I have another meeting at 10:45.
Oh, okay,
I
good.
Have to be at. So
Well, I think I do.
I know we had a little bit slow start today, but I
We
just
did.
wanted to make you aware of that.
Okay.
That I'm going to have to leave at 10:45.
Well, what can we do
Leave
to
a
get?
call.
Let's get you to that first meeting then. Let's see where that's at. I believe that if you're
Well, September 19th was the last one,
oh,
so
that was canceled. Okay, so this would be your next.
November 21st. Okay.
Yeah, and if you can.
Friday, November 21st. Okay.
So now I have to try to get some of my electrical people. What I've tried to do is, because of the proximity, is to work with Michigan State, but I don't think their management is ready for this yet. It makes sense that they would want to be close to that, but I've discovered that there actually isn't anybody at Michigan State on any of these boards. Shocking, isn't it? There is Truman here. He does agriculture. No, let me back up on that. Truman is a good guy, but I don't think we have anybody from Michigan State that are on any of these boards. And you'd think with the proximity that they would use that advantage. So there's other, there's other universities that are closer there, but you're still looking at an hour's drive. It's a little less than an hour's drive to get us to Okemos. So
right.
at the moment you can do that if your boss will approve you being able to do this. There's probably more discussion that has to occur, but get acclimated to it, and then we'll meet again. We try to meet on this once a month. So I guess we could probably look at, we'll try to find a spot on a calendar. I'll talk to you privately about your calendar available. Or do we want to, why don't we do that right now? One good way to close out a meeting is to figure out when we meet next. What would we, how about, I'm guessing the 22nd. Are people available to talk about this again on the 22nd?
Of
October?
I'm just flipping through my
I
calendar.
do. I'm available.
I'm available in the morning.
How about 10 o'clock then?
Okay. I'll wait for your.
I have a meeting that starts at 11:30. I'm not sure exactly. It hasn't been confirmed yet.
But
yeah,
you'd be free at 10?
Yeah. Okay. Good. Let's try to keep to a half an hour. I always aim for a half hour.
Okay.
I would assume
Okay.
a half hour coordination and a half an hour actually doing something. So it's supposed to be an
Right.
hour. So let me do this. Jim, will you be at the ANSI? Do you think you're going to be able to get to welcoming our guest here? Is that?
Yes. Now, you sent an invitation for the 3 o'clock, which is that? Now, I'd like to, if possible, if you, maybe I'll have to go and revisit the page, because wasn't there going to be some discussion, or was Rich and you going to present some level of discussion about the broader topic at the IAMPA meeting?
We are, and I'm trying to get that item also. I believe that it's going to happen after. What I heard is I thought it was going to happen before lunch. It'll happen after lunch. And so you and I, Jim, can coordinate a bit on this. I know Carol probably needs to skitter off to her other meeting, but I think we have a time slot right now.
But I will look forward to more conversations on this.
Okay.
And I've got it on my calendar to go to the Barrier Free Design board meeting on the 21st of November.
Perfect. We'll talk a little bit before then. And Paul, I'll see you around. Jim, I'm going to stop the recording now. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to stop.
Thank you.
Stay on the line. Jim, could you stay on the line?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm just going to stop the recording.
All right.